a green chopping board, and a container. Now let's see how it's done. Friends, you will agree that potato is the handiest vegetable. So let us learn how to dice a potato in the brunoise style. You can then use the same technique to dice other vegetables as well. Place the potato in a colander and wash it under running water. Peel the potato using the peeler. Although you must know that some vegetables such as the brinjal, French beans do not need peeling. Trim out the round edges to make it a square. Do not throw away the trimmings. Use it for preparing stock. Make thin slices of 1/8 inches. Place the cut slices horizontally. Cut the bunch of slices lengthwise of 1/8 of an inch. And collect the cut pieces in a container. Similarly, cut the remaining portions of the vegetable. If you're cutting vegetables such as brinjal, potatoes, apples, as you cut, place them in water to avoid browning. Now you have an excellently diced potato. Isn't that amazing? And it was so easy, wasn't it? Hey there, friends! Now that you know how to make brunoise dices, let us learn another type of dice, the medium dice. A medium dice is 1/3 inch cube. As it was with the brunoise cut, you will need the following tools to make medium dices: a colander, a peeler, a knife, a chopping board, and a container. Place the potato in a colander and wash it under running water. You must peel the potato with a peeler. Trim out the round edges to make it a square. Do not throw away trimmings. Use it for preparing stock. Make thin slices of 1/3 inches. Place the cut slices horizontally. Cut the bunch of slices lengthwise in pieces of 1/3 of an inch. Finally, cut the bunch 1/3 inch, starting from the right end and moving towards the left. Similarly, cut the rest of the pieces. There you have it. You have seen how to successfully medium dice a potato. Wasn't that easy? So friends, now that you get the general idea of how to make dices, let us proceed with making large dices. Large dices are 3/4 inch cubes. Dices are cut to make the food easier to eat and cook. Similar to the previous cuts, you will need a colander, a peeler, a knife, a green chopping board, and a container to make large dices. Are you ready to learn how to make large dices? Excellent! We shall again be using a potato to demonstrate how to make large dices. Start by peeling the potato with a peeler. Make sure you peel all the skin properly. Trim out the round edges to make it a square. Do not throw away the trimmings. Use it for preparing stock. Cut vertically after every 1 inch. Take one part and place it vertically. Make thin slices after 1 inch. Place slices horizontally and cut bunch lengthwise after 1 inch. And collect the cut pieces in a container. While cutting any vegetable, it is very important to take certain precautions for your own safety. Your thumb must always be behind your fingers. Fingers should be straight because nails are hard and the knife blade will slide off from the nails. If you cut yourself while cutting something, discard the ingredients lying on the chopping board. Sanitize the board to make it germ-free before using it again. Wasn't it interesting to learn how to dice a vegetable in different ways? I'm sure you will all be using these methods in your daily work from now on. Remember, in this module you have learned how to brunoise dice a vegetable, medium dice a vegetable, large dice a vegetable. But you must remember certain important things as well. Firstly, the cuts you make must be of same size and shape. This helps the food get cooked uniformly. Secondly, the procedure for cutting varies depending on the type, shape and size of the vegetable. For example, you will not use the same method to cut palak that you had used to cut a potato. Do you get the idea? And lastly, while cutting vegetables such as brinjal, potatoes, apples, etc., remember to place the cut pieces in water to avoid browning. Let's get started. First of all, what are finger shapes? Well, as the name suggests, these cuts are all long like your fingers. However, they are short in width and height. In this module, we're going to learn two cuts of finger shapes: the batonette and the small finger cut. Before you can start cutting away like a professional, you need to know how to handle a knife. A good knife handling technique will help you cut faster and more efficiently. First, clean and sanitize knife to disinfect it. Be careful, don't cut yourself. Clean and sanitize the chopping board as well. Can you tell me why chef has chosen a green chopping board? That's right. Because we want to cut vegetables, we must use a green chopping board. Then you must place the vegetables on the chopping board. Hold them in place correctly. You can do this by placing your hand on the vegetable with the thumb behind your fingers. The fingers must be straight. This position is best because nails are hard and the knife blade will slide off from the nails if there's a mishap. Now you're all set to cut the vegetables in the desired shape and size. First, let's look at the batonette cut. Batonette is French for small stick. It is named so because that is exactly what the batonette cut looks like. To practice the batonette cut, you will need a colander, a peeler, a knife, a chopping board, and a container. Now watch closely as the chef cuts perfect batonettes. First, place the vegetable that you are going to cut in a colander and wash it thoroughly under running water. As you can see, Chef Raj is going to demonstrate using a carrot. Next, peel your vegetable using your peeler. Well, having said that, will you peel brinjals or French beans? Correct. We need not peel vegetables like brinjal, French beans and cabbage. Next, trim the two ends of the vegetable. Cut the vegetable vertically after every 1.5 inches. Next, cut the rounded edges of your vegetable. You have to do this because you want your batonettes to be angular and identical in shape. But wait, don't throw those edges away. You can use them to prepare salads or raitas or even stock, depending on the vegetable. Place one part vertically and starting from one edge, cut after every 1/4 inch to get slices. Now, starting from one edge, cut the slices after every 1/4 inch to get your batonettes. Don't forget to collect your batonettes in a container. Also, keep in mind that if you're cutting foods like brinjal, apples or potatoes, you will have to place them in water to avoid browning. And that's all. Perfect batonettes in just a few simple steps. Now let's move on to the smaller finger shape. As you can see, this cut is very fine. Only 1/4 inch in width and height. Make sure you have all your equipment ready. You will need a colander, a peeler, a knife, a green chopping board, and a container. Before you begin cutting, make sure that your knife and chopping board have been washed in chlorine water. Don't forget to choose the correct chopping board. Yes, I will use the green chopping board. Please remember to wash and peel the vegetable. Now we're all set to start. First, trim off the two rounded edges of your vegetable. Then hold your vegetable firmly and give cuts after every 2.5 inches. Remember to hold your knife correctly so you don't injure yourself or the vegetables. Place one part vertically, trim off the rounded edges, and starting from one edge, cut after every 1/8 of an inch to get slices. Now starting from one edge, cut the slices after every 1/8 of an inch. Remember to save the edges for salads or raitas. Don't forget to collect your small fingers in a container. Also, keep in mind that if you're cutting foods like brinjal, apples or potatoes, you will have to place them in water to avoid browning. And that's all. So let's summarize what we have learnt. Before we get into cutting, remember to prepare your workspace. By now, I'm sure that all of you are very good at handling your knives. Do make sure that you follow all the requisite steps before attempting to cut any ingredient. So, our first lesson on thin vegetable cuts is going to be on grating. Grating is nothing but rubbing an ingredient against a grater so as to shred it into very fine pieces. A grater is a piece of equipment that has small grooves all over it. To begin grating, you will need the following tools: a colander, a peeler, a knife, a grater, and a container. Now we're ready to start grating. Chef Raj is going to demonstrate using a cucumber. You can grate many ingredients like cheese, coconut, and chocolate. Always wash your veggies first. To do this, place the vegetable in a colander and wash it under running water. Peel the vegetable using a peeler. Cut off the stem with a knife. Don't trash the stem, we'll find some use for it. Now for the fun part. Hold your grater in one hand and the vegetable in the other. Now start rubbing the vegetable against the grooves of the grater. Don't go too fast, you don't want to grate your fingers. Make sure that you collect all the grated vegetables in a container. There you have it, perfectly grated cucumber. Friends, Can you imagine dicing a leafy vegetable like cabbage? It is just impossible to get those perfectly identical cubes. Thus, for leafy vegetables, we use a cutting method known as shredding. Shreds are very thin slices which aren't very uniform. To shred vegetables, you will need the following tools: a colander, a green chopping board, a knife, and a container. Let's get shredding. Chef Raj is going to demonstrate using a cabbage. First things first, wash your vegetable. I'm sure you already know how. Now, most leafy vegetables don't need peeling, so you can skip this step while you're shredding. Cut the cabbage in half. Now, quarter the halves and cut off the stems. Now, take a quarter and place it with its flat end on the chopping board. Start slicing it as thinly as possible at a slight slant. Repeat the same with all the quarters. Don't forget to collect your shreds in a container. And that's all it takes to shred a vegetable. Can someone tell me the finger shapes? Yes, the batonette and the small fingers. Well, the julienne is very similar, only much thinner. These cuts are generally used for garnishing. You can see the difference between batonettes, small fingers and juliennes. As you can see, juliennes are only 1/16th of an inch in breadth and height. Now let's see how to cut these extremely fine juliennes. Make sure you have the following tools: a colander, a peeler, a knife, a green chopping board, and a container. Chef Raj is going to show us how to julienne ginger. First, wash your vegetable thoroughly and peel if required. Now, cut the piece of ginger along its length. Remember, you want long juliennes. Then, hold all the cut pieces together like so. They should look like the pages of a closed book. This will make it easier for you to cut them into even finer slices. Cut as thinly as you can. Do not go thicker than 1/16th of an inch. Collect your julienne vegetable in a container. There you have it, the perfect julienne slices. So, our first lesson on thin vegetable cuts is going to be on grating. Grating is nothing but rubbing an ingredient against a grater so as to shred it into very fine pieces. A grater is a piece of equipment that has small grooves all over it. To begin grating, you will need the following tools: a colander, a peeler, a knife, a grater, and a container. Now we're ready to start grating. Chef Raj is going to demonstrate using a cucumber. You can grate many ingredients like cheese, coconut, and chocolate. Always wash your veggies first. To do this, place the vegetable in a colander and wash it under running water. Peel the vegetable using a peeler. Cut off the stem with a knife. Don't trash the stem, we'll find some use for it. Now for the fun part. Hold your grater in one hand and the vegetable in the other. Now start rubbing the vegetable against the grooves of the grater. Don't go too fast. You don't want to grate your fingers. Make sure that you collect all the grated vegetables in a container. There you have it, perfectly grated cucumber. Friends, can you imagine dicing a leafy vegetable like cabbage? It is just impossible to get those perfectly identical cubes. Thus, for leafy vegetables, we use a cutting method known as shredding. Shreds are very thin slices which aren't very uniform. To shred vegetables, you will need the following tools: a colander, a green chopping board, a knife, and a container. Let's get shredding. Chef Raj is going to demonstrate using a cabbage. First things first, wash your vegetable. I'm sure you already know how. Now, most leafy vegetables don't need peeling, so you can skip this step while you're shredding. Cut the cabbage in half. Now, quarter the halves and cut off the stems. Now, take a quarter and place it with its flat end on the chopping board. Start slicing it as thinly as possible at a slight slant. Repeat the same with all the quarters. Don't forget to collect your shreds in a container. And that's all it takes to shred a vegetable. Can someone tell me the finger shapes? Yes, the bassinet and the small fingers. Well, the julienne is very similar, only much thinner. These cuts are generally used for garnishing. You can see the difference between bassinets, small fingers and juliennes. As you can see, juliennes are only 1/16th of an inch in breadth and height. Now let's see how to cut these extremely fine juliennes. Make sure you have the following tools: a colander, a peeler, a knife, a green chopping board, and a container. Chef Raj is going to show us how to julienne ginger. First, wash your vegetable thoroughly and peel if required. Now, cut the piece of ginger along its length. Remember, you want long juliennes. Then, hold all the cut pieces together like so. They should look like the pages of a closed book. This will make it easier for you to cut them into even finer slices. Cut as thinly as you can. Do not go thicker than 1/16 of an inch. Collect your julienne vegetable in a container. There you have it, the perfect julienne slices. So let's revise what we have learnt. We have learnt about 3 methods of producing thin cuts: grating, shredding, and the julienne cuts. Always remember that your cut vegetables must be roughly the same size. This will ensure that they all get cooked evenly. And last but certainly not the least, always keep your working area clean and tidy. Follow all the safety precautions and be careful. Friends, as you know, meat products are flesh parts obtained from animals. Hence, they need to be properly cooked so as to make them hygienic. Meat products are generally cut into small pieces so that they are easily cooked and safe to eat. The tools used to cut meat are of different types, depending on the cut that you want to make. Let's have a look. Chef's knife, fork, butcher knife, fish filleting knife, and not to forget the chopping board. This time we shall use the yellow chopping board. Now that we know what the different knives are, let's move on to the cutting. The first type of cut we'll learn is called the drumstick cut. The leg pieces of chicken are called as drumsticks. They are served in curries or are roasted, grilled, or cooked in tandoors. If you've had chicken leg pieces, you'll know what I'm talking about. First, you must skin the chicken. This is very important if you want to make an Indian dish. On the other hand, if the chicken is intended for a continental dish, the skin should not be removed. Now hold the thigh. Feel the joint. A joint is where the two bones meet. Can you see how it moves? Cut at the joint. This is a good place to cut because there are soft cartilages inside and no sharp edges are formed once the cut is made. This is very important to note because sharp edges pose as a threat as they can injure the mouth when eating. Finally, friends, we have a drumstick. Let us now learn about another kind of cut called the curry cut. This is a general cut where the chicken is cut into 8 to 12 pieces. These pieces are then used in curries and stews. Skin the fresh chicken. This is very important for Indian dishes. If preparing for a continental dish, there is no need to skin the chicken. You can directly proceed with the cuts. Hold the legs of the chicken in one hand and the breast side in the other hand. Now move both your hands a little upwards to snap the backbone. Now cut from the snapped joint. Place both the legs of the chicken on the chopping board. Then cut through the middle of the chicken in order to get 2 pieces. From each piece, separate out the drumstick, the thigh. Chicken is small, only 4 pieces will be made. Take the upper half of the chicken. Take the upper half of the chicken and cut it vertically to divide into 2 equal halves. Make 2 or 3 equal cuts in each half. If the chicken is small, 2 equal cuts will suffice. Now that the cuts are made, you must immediately get the chicken pieces out of the danger zone to avoid spoiling. Take them to the chef to make an awesome curry or store them in the freezer for further use. Awesome! Now that you know how to make the curry cuts, let's move on to another very important type of cut called mincing. Mincing means grinding the meat into very small or minute pieces. Minced meat is used to make burger patties, kebabs, chicken keema, and such dishes. Let us see how our friend chef minces his chicken. But before you can mince the chicken to make your delicious recipes, you must debone it. How do you do that? Let chef show you. As usual, skin the chicken. Now, you must debone the chicken so that no bones are left in it when you grind it in a mincer. First, you must cut off wings at the first joint. Next, make a cut in the skin between the leg and body to expose the joint. Then, with your free hand, twist the thigh until the joint comes free. Once that's done, cut the leg starting from the top of the thigh bone and move downward. After that, strip the meat from the leg bone and turn the carcass on its side. Next, insert your knife behind the wing joint and cut forward, separating the wing from the body. Keep carving diagonally until the breast is loosened from the bone. Once the chicken is deboned, put it in the mincer. You can also mince using a chopper. After it has been properly minced, collect the mince in a container. Do you remember how we cut vegetables into dices or cube shapes? We can likewise cut chicken into cubes too. Normally, chicken cubes are of 1 by 1 by 1 inch or 2 by 1 by 1 inch dimensions. Sounds complicated like math? Don't worry, we'll learn how to make these cubes together. Again, we will start by skinning the fresh chicken. Now you must debone the chicken. Do you remember how to do that? Great. Then we'll just take a quick look at how it's done again. Now that the chicken is properly deboned, cut the meat into 1-inch strips lengthwise. Now taking each strip, place it horizontally on the yellow chopping board meant for poultry. Cut each strip vertically after every inch from one end to the other. Now that the meat has been cut into cubes, collect it in a container. Send it for cooking or store it at -18 degrees Celsius. Chicken can be cut into slices too. You can use chicken slices in various food dishes and preparations. You just need to be imaginative. Let's see how we can get the perfect chicken slices. You will be using a deboned chicken to make these slices of meat. Slice this deboned chicken horizontally into 2 halves. To each of these sliced halves, make vertical cuts. Once you have the slices, collect them in a separate container and immediately remove them from the danger zone. You know why, right? Now, do you want to make dices of chicken meat? If yes, these same slices can be further processed to make chicken dices. For dicing chicken, place the bunch of slices horizontally on the chopping board as shown by Chef Raj. Make vertical cuts. At every interval of 1/6 of an inch, make a cut. Continue by doing so from one end to the other. Now you have nicely diced chicken. You can store this in the freezer or send for cooking immediately. So, dear friends, today we learned how to make different cuts of chicken for a variety of dishes. Let us go through them once again. We learned how to make drumsticks, curry cuts, mince, cubes, and slices and dices. We also saw what tools are used in the process. Let us list them one by one. Chef's knife, butcher knife, the yellow chopping board. When we think about seafood, we mostly think of fish. But there is so much more to it than that. The term seafood is applicable to any sort of marine life that humans generally consider as food. Let's see how many different kinds of seafood we can spot. This fisherwoman has a very nice collection of fish. Look at these beautiful pomfrets. My mouth is already watering. Squids, mussels, oysters. All these animals are seafood, but they are not fish. They are termed as mollusks. This is because they don't have any bones. Now look at these crabs here. See this hard shell? Instead of bones, crabs have this outer shell. All animals having such outer skeletons are called crustaceans. Crabs, lobsters, even prawns, all are crustaceans. So, fish, mollusks, and crustaceans are the main types of seafood. Easy enough, right? Okay, so now that we have purchased some nice fresh seafood, let's get cooking. Oh, but wait, we're not ready yet. Seafood needs to be cut into pieces before being served to guests. You can't just serve a whole fish. Think about the bones that the customers would have to pick out, the amount of cutting. Phew! So let's look at the tools you would require to make your fish perfectly presentable. This knife here is called a fish filleting knife. Its sharp, flexible blade is perfect for maneuvering around the fish and getting them completely clean. Do you remember the color of the chopping board used to cut vegetables? Yes, correct. Green. And that used to cut meat? Correct again. Yellow. And do you know that we strictly use blue-colored chopping boards to cut seafood? Last but certainly not the least is our trusty kitchen knife. This knife should be your best friend and constant companion. Always have one tucked in your apron, even when you have meetings with a chef. This versatile knife is very handy when it comes to chopping off the scales, fins, tails, and heads of your seafood.
And most importantly, the hand gloves.
Now we're ready to cook some fish. Now that we know the tools to be used, let us get down to cutting our fish. Let's learn about the various ways that we can do this. We have the fillet, the darnay or steak cut, and the finger cut. I know these names sound a little complicated, but I promise you that the cuts are very simple. Don't believe me? I bet you will by the end of this lesson. Let's learn about the fillet cut first. Cutting a fillet basically means getting a big chunk of fish without any bones. The skin can be removed or left on as per the requirements. I'm going to show you how to get a good fillet. We always start with a dressed fish. A dressed fish is one that has had its head, scales, fin, tails, and internal organs removed. Most times, the fish vendor will dress and clean the fish for you. So, let's get cutting. First, place your dressed fish in a colander and wash it under running water. Place the washed fish on the chopping board. Remember to use the blue one. Hold the knife like this. with its blade facing away from you. Begin cutting the fish in half like this. Start from the tail and move towards where the head used to be. Use the fish's backbone to guide your knife. There! Now we have a nice fillet of fish. If you want to remove the skin, place the fish fillet on the chopping board with the skin facing down. Insert the knife between the flesh and the skin. Holding the skin, cut it away. Remember to go from the tail to the head. There you have it. A perfect fillet of fish. Now we're going to learn how to cut a darne or steak cut. Wash your fish and place it on a blue chopping board. When cutting off the fish's head, angle your knife towards the front of the fish. We do this because there is a lot of good flesh under the skull, and this ensures that it doesn't get wasted. Cut down to the bone and follow the line through to just behind the fins on the gut cavity. Now just cut the fish vertically, directly on the bone. The size of your pieces may vary according to the size of your fish. However, keep them in the range of 1 to 1.5 inches. And that's all there is to the darne cut. Fingers are just long, boneless pieces of fish that resemble your fingers. Let me show you how to cut fish into fingers. For this cut, you need to start off with a fish fillet. I already taught you how to cut a fillet. Do you remember? Good. Now, cut the fillet into strips that are about half an inch thick. Remember, these finger cuts have to be approximately as long as your fingers. That's 2 to 3 inches long. So if you're cutting a fish that's shorter than 2 inches, like mackerel, you would need to cut the strips horizontally. We now have perfectly cut fish fingers ready to cook or store. Oh, and speaking of storage, fish fingers need to be refrigerated at under 18 degrees Celsius. Uncooked fish fingers are quite fragile. So don't press the flesh too hard. Okay.
अरे गीता, तुम मेरे घर आई ये तो बहुत अच्छी बात है। वास्तव में मुझे इंटरनेट के बारे में कई महत्वपूर्ण बातों को समझने में तुम्हारी मदद की जरूरत है।
जरूर चाचा, मैं यहाँ आपकी मदद और मार्गदर्शन के लिए आई हूँ।